Hey moms and dads, Dr. Garrett with here at Foundation Chiropractic, and today I want to talk to you about ADHD and sensory processing disorder because this is information parents are really seeking out. Research supports sensory processing disorder, ADHD, these things are on a meteoric rise. And if you have a child struggling with sensory issues or hyperactivity, you understand this is a big impact on the entire family dynamic, right? Everyone in the family is impacted by these disorders. And the purpose of today is I want to give you guys a general overview on what's going on with your child. I want to break this down into simple terms because when you understand what's going on and why they're struggling, you can therefore address it and improve what's going on with these kids. And the big thing to understand as kind of the foundation is, listen, sensory processing disorder and ADHD are neurological issues, they're neurodevelopmental. And what that means is the problem is in their nervous system. Their nervous system, their brain, their spinal cord, their spinal nerves is not functioning as well as it should. So what we need to do is improve the way it functions, and we can do that, okay? But I want to take you back to just kind of a general foundation on what does the nervous system do? What's the purpose of your brain and your spinal cord? The purpose is to assess its environment and organize a response. In other words, perceive, coordinate, and behavior. When your brain's getting good input from in the assessment, right? What do I mean by assess its environment? Your brain is constantly getting input from its 7 senses. And when that input's good, your brain is going to organize it appropriately and send good output, good behavioral output, which is non-sensory things, right? Being able to wear whatever clothes you want, being able to eat whatever food textures you want, certain noises that don't, cause you to freak out, not being impulsive and hyperactive, being able to sleep, right? Those are all those things that I mentioned. Those are abnormal responses. So when your brain's able to perceive and coordinate and assess its environment well, your body's naturally going to behave appropriately. So as parents come to us, and what are they looking to change? Behavior, right? My kid has sensory issues, improve the behavior. My kid has hyperactivity, improve his behavior. But you see how that's an uphill battle? When you can just improve the way the body and the brain is assessing its environment, it's automatically going to organize an appropriate behavioral response. And that's exactly what we do in our office. What we can do is we can improve the input to the brain. I'll talk about that as we go throughout this video. But the big thing I want you to understand is at the start is, listen, the nervous system organizes or assesses its environment and coordinates behavior. The problem with sensory processing disorder and ADHD is they're not assessing their environment appropriately, and they're therefore not coordinating behavior appropriately. So once again, let's take it back to let's improve the way the nervous system functions. How can you do that? Your brain and your nervous system is what they call neuroplastic, which means it's constantly forming new pathways. So your child right now maybe has some crooked roads, right? Neurological roads that's not allowing good input to their brain. What we want to do is basically unwind those roads, start forming better connections, better pathways. And that's the purpose of neuroplasticity. We need to start retraining the brain and the nervous system. Instead of having crossed wires, to have straight wires so we get better input to it, so the brain is going to assess things better. It's going to coordinate better behavior, okay? And what I want to talk about next is how we can improve that, okay? But not only that, think of neuroplasticity as like retraining a muscle, right? You can go to the gym and you can change your body dynamic, right? You can go to a chiropractor, one that's focused like we do, and start retraining your nervous system. So that's the whole thing of neuroplasticity. So setting the foundation, understand their neurological issues. Understand with neuroplasticity, we can improve the way the nervous system functions. So now I want to talk about sensory processing disorder kind of on itself, and then I'll talk a little bit about ADHD. So, the nervous system assesses its environment through its 7 senses. With sensory processing disorder, those sensory receptors are weak in that they don't send enough input to the brain. So, your sensory receptors, they have to be stimulated and reach a certain threshold before they fire and send good input to the brain. With sensory processing disorder, these receptors are weak, so they don't get stimulated. They don't send enough good input to the brain. So, a lot of these kids will stim because what they're trying to do is improve input to their brain. Why would they stim? So taking another step back, movement feeds your brain, movement charges your brain's batteries. If you would go exercise, you would understand after you exercise, more mental clarity, less mental stress, right? More focus. That's because what you did is you moved and what that did is that motor system, your movement motor, your muscle system, fires good input to the brain. And it drives good input to the brain. Well, what do we want? We want good input to the brain, right? So it's better able to perceive and coordinate behavior. So when it comes to these kids, what we need to do is we need to start firing those receptors, to start training those receptors, neuroplasticity, start getting them to fire and retrain so they become stronger. How can a chiropractor do that? Well, if you, as I just said, your motor system has a huge impact on your brain. We improve the skeletal muscle system, the motor system. When we adjust the spine, it is a huge stimulus to the tone of the neck and of the spine. So it's a huge stimulus to the motor system that drives good input to the brain, which allows the brain to be able to assess its environment and organize a better response. This research article I have here says that when we adjust the spine, it actually stimulates the brain by 20%. If you think about it, that's huge. That's a huge, so the chiropractic adjustment, by stimulating that motor system, 20% increase in brain function, which is absolutely huge. It's going to perceive better, it's going to coordinate, you're going to get better behavior. So that's the thing with sensory processing disorder, basically, is that as our brain's trying to get input to the brain sensory processing disorder, they don't have the receptors to fire to drive that good input. So we get bad output, right? Which is, like I said, food textures, clothing sensitivities, certain noises, things like that. So when we adjust the spine, we send good input and we train those receptors, we get those receptors firing better, and the brain naturally processes and organizes things better, and we naturally get better output. So that's how we can help with sensory processing disorder. With ADHD, it's a little bit different in that these kids aren't as, they're still disorganized, their nervous system, but the big thing with this, they're just stressed out. There's so much input going to their brain, it's just firing all the time. Their brain can't even calm down to understand what assessing its environment even means. These kids are just always on the go. They never sleep, they're very hyperactive. So with this kids, what we want to do is calm the brain down. How do we do that? Exercise feeds the brain, right? Movement feeds the brain. Chiropractic adjustments feed the brain. We adjust these kids, we send that good input to the brain, and we calm that nervous system down. And when you do that, repetitively over a period of time, what we do is we retrain the nervous system to be more organized and stronger and more calm. And when you do that, guess what? They assess their environment better and they organize an appropriate behavior response. So the big thing I want you guys to understand, if I can kind of summarize, is listen, sensory processing disorder and ADHD are nervous system issues. So let's improve the way the nervous system functions. How do we do that? Chiropractic adjustments are a huge stimulus to the nervous system. They send good input to the brain, they calm that brain down. Okay, and when you do that over time, the nervous system can kind of rewire itself, reprogram itself to be functioning better. When the nervous system and the sensory systems are functioning better, your brain's going to get better input to it, your brain's going to coordinate things well, and you're going to get better output, which is going to be no sensory issues and more sleep and less hyperactivity and things of that nature. And I just want you to know real quick too, by at the end of this, I'm not here to try and change your child. I'm here to change their quirks into superpowers. Okay, ADHD kids especially, these kids have the opportunity to change the world. But if you can't, program and channel that energy the right way, then you can't change the world. So when we calm these kids down, like I said, you'll be amazed at the results we get in our office. When you start adjusting these kids, driving that good input to the brain and how they can really change over time. It's absolutely amazing. So I hope you found this information valuable. Like I said, it was a 101. I wanted to break it down into general terms for you so it's easy to understand. If you do have questions or comments, please do not hesitate to contact us. We're here to reach out. We're here to help in any way that we can, so never hesitate to reach out. Thanks a lot for your time, and I hope you found this information valuable. Talk soon.